We've owned our Mercedes-Benz GLS450 for just over 2 years now, so let's talk about what it's been like. Hello, and welcome to Auto Be Careful, the place for car safety. I'm Gene, and today we're going to go over everything that's happened to the Mercedes GLS450 over the past year, what it's cost us to keep it up and running, and whether those costs have gone down or up since the first year. Let's get into it. Before we get into the costs, I want to mention a few things. The first is, you may be wondering, hey Gene, why are you filming a video about your 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLS450 in the back of your 2017 Subaru Outback that you're currently trying to sell? That's a good question. Believe it or not, just a couple days ago, the Mercedes had a new issue I had never seen before, so it's currently in the shop getting repaired. I'll get into that a little bit more later in the video. Since the Mercedes is not available, and we have not yet revealed which vehicle we're going to be using to replace this 2017 Subaru Outback, I'm simply using the Outback today to talk about what's happened with the Mercedes over the last year. The next thing I want to mention is the costs that I incurred in the first year of ownership of the GLS450. I'm not going to use this video to break down those costs like the video I posted a year ago. So if you want to see that content, please go check out that video, and I will link that in the description below. There are two things I want to mention about that. The first is, in that previous video, I tried to provide the before-tax cost of each of the services that were performed on the GLS450. However, it was not an accurate representation of what it cost me to have those things done to the vehicle. So in this video, I'm actually going to include tax on the individual services that were done. The other thing I want to mention about cost is that in that previous video, I did calculate the total cost of the first year of ownership of the Mercedes GLS450 at $3,831.73. However, I left out two things. The first is, I did purchase from Mercedes 2 retroreflective safety vests. Each of those vests costs about $10. The other thing I purchased from Mercedes was touch-up paint to fix a small scratch on the side of the vehicle. That cost about $30. Overall, the cost of those items added about $50 to the total cost of ownership for the first year. With everything included, that brings the total cost of the first year of owning a certified pre-owned 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLS450 to $3,885.48. Now, I want to mention, if you're taking bets at home over whether or not the cost of ownership in the second year went lower or higher than the first year, pause the video and lock in your answers now because we're about to get into it, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. We're going to start where we left off in our year one video, which was having Service B, also known as the 40,000 mile service, completed at the end of January 2025. From that point until late May, we had no issues with the vehicle at all. If you watched our fleet update in September, you may recall that I mentioned how one of the cameras that contributes to the 360 view of the vehicle failed to work correctly a few times. Since that video was released, I did find the photos that I took of those incidents, so I can show them to you now. Both of these incidents occurred in late May, the first one happening on May 21st of 2025, and then again on May 29th of 2025. I was trying to find a way to reliably reproduce that issue. Unfortunately, that issue is so intermittent, I wasn't able to do that, so I didn't end up taking it in for repair at that time. Also in that video, I mentioned how when the windshield washer fluid is low, the vehicle pops up with a warning every time it started to let the driver know that it needs to be refilled. This is annoying for a number of reasons, including the fact that that warning blocks a large portion of the instrument display And it's typically recommended to use Mercedes-specific windshield washer fluid. This is something I was able to purchase from Mercedes in August for $10.99. That washer fluid doesn't fill up the whole reservoir, so Mercedes recommended that I fill up the tank the rest of the way with distilled water. I don't remember how much I paid for a gallon of distilled water at the time, but looking it up on the internet just now, 1 gallon of distilled water costs $2.99 before tax. After I filmed that fleet update video in September, I took the GLS in to get a number of things repaired. That included the 360 camera view issue that I mentioned earlier, an issue where the driver's side mirror was really squeaky when it was folding, an issue where some of the ceiling vents in the vehicle weren't blowing as strong as I thought they should have, and an issue where some of the screws were missing from the false floor in the cargo area. Mercedes was unable to reproduce the 360 camera issue with the vehicle. They did lubricate the driver's side mirror to stop the squeaking, and they installed new screws in the false floor to make sure it was secure. They also fixed an open recall with the vehicle, which required a software update. The ceiling vent issue that I had was that one of the ceiling vents in the second row had much stronger airflow than the ceiling vent on the other side. Mercedes let me know that because the ceiling vents on each side share blower motors for the second and third row, if the third row vent is closed on one side, the associated second row vent will have stronger airflow because it has more air going through it. Regardless, Mercedes took care of everything in that September visit at no cost, so it was all free. Later in the year, I knew that the spare tire in the vehicle was turning 5. In anticipation of this, I purchased a new spare tire from Walmart for $177.36. Now, tires can last longer than 5 years, especially spare tires because they're not exposed to the elements the way the tires that are mounted on the vehicle are. However, the spare tire is critical when it's needed, and I like to be able to rely on my spare tires, so I tend to replace them right around the time they turn 5, just to make sure I have that peace of mind. Then in November, we did the 5-year or 50,000-mile service, and this is where the numbers really start to change. We had them mount that spare tire that I purchased from Walmart to the rim, and that cost $164.88. We also had them do the 3-part engine service, which is the same service we did last year. That includes cleaning the crankcase, engine oil conditioner, and 44K fuel treatment, which cost $184.73, including tax. We also had them replace the engine air filter, which cost $421.39, of which $85 were parts. The rest was labor and tax. We also did 6 spark plugs for the 6-cylinder engine, which cost an eye-watering $751.47. That included $206.30 of parts, the rest of which was labor and tax. We also elected to do a cooling system service, which cost $338.96. This was $104.03 in parts, the rest was labor and tax. We also elected to have them do an evaporator core cleaning for a total of $258.44. That was $57.62 in parts, with the rest being labor and taxes. Finally, we did the big 5-year, 50,000-mile service, which was an eye-watering $1,284.97 and included an oil change with a new oil filter, correcting the under-hood fluid levels, including washer solvent, checking for recalls, resetting the service indicator, doing a quality control road test, replacing the dust filter, replacing the key remote battery, replacing the front and rear wiper blades, doing an OBD test to check the vehicle for codes, and a complimentary tire rotation where applicable. This was $281.20 in parts, with the rest being labor and taxes. They also recommended that we do a 4x4 service in order to ensure that the all-wheel drive functionality of the vehicle is operating as efficiently as possible. We declined to do that at the time, but did end up having it done in December, which was another $889.53. That was after a 10% discount that the manager gave us. That 4x4 service was $447.90 in parts. The rest of it was labor and taxes. You may be wondering why I decided to do the 5-year, 50,000-mile service in November and then wait to do the 4x4 service in December. The reason was I wanted to spread out the cost a little bit. That 5-year, 50,000-mile service was just over $3,400, and this added almost another $1,000 to the bill. So I didn't want to do it all at once. But I did need to do it before the end of December because we were going to take the GLS on a road trip through some areas with snow and ice. So I wanted to make sure that the 4x4 or all-wheel drive system was working perfectly. After that, I thought we were going to be done with service for that vehicle for the year, but we had a couple surprises show up just before the 2-year mark that I want to talk about. The first was I was about to drive to work and got about a block and a half away from home when I got a notification that the tire pressure in the rear passenger side tire was at 5 psi. I was close enough to home that I was able to park the vehicle on the side of the road, walk back to our home, get our tire inflator, and inflate the tire enough that I would be confident it would make it back to our home. During this process, I found that it was really nice. The tire pressure monitor in the Mercedes actively reads the tire pressure. So as I was inflating the tire pressure monitoring system was actually updating the tire pressure in real time. While I was inflating the tire, I could easily see that there was a screw that had gotten stuck in the tire and caused a puncture, and I could hear air coming out from the area. Once the tire was fully inflated, I was confident it was going to hold air long enough for me to go over to the Mercedes dealer that we usually go to for service to get the tire repaired. It was once I got to the Mercedes dealer that the story gets a little interesting. My service advisor looked at the tire and then with a straight face quoted me $605 to replace it with a brand new tire. That took me by surprise because I know a little bit about tires, and the puncture in my tire seemed like it was in the perfect place for a tire patch. I asked my service advisor about this, and they said the dealer policy was never to repair a tire and only offer replacements because of the liability risk. It was then that I decided to take the vehicle over to a local tire shop. The local tire shop was able to fully patch the tire, didn't charge me anything for the repair, and essentially saved me over $600. The only issue I had was that they initially incorrectly noted the mileage on the vehicle, so I had them correct it, and hopefully it won't show up as an issue on a Carfax report one day. One last issue popped up just before our 2-year anniversary with this vehicle. I was driving down the road and noticed that I wasn't getting any reading from the speedometer on the instrument cluster. Most new vehicles have a way to reboot these displays if this type of issue occurs, and Mercedes is no different. On the right side of the steering wheel, there are 2 buttons that can be held down for an extended period of time in order to reboot the infotainment display, and on the left side of the steering wheel, there are 2 buttons that can be held down for an extended period of time in order to reboot the instrument cluster. I did this for both displays, and it fixed all of the issues I was having. The last thing I want to talk about is the reason the Mercedes is in repair right now. The Mercedes popped up with a warning saying active headlamps inoperative. I took it over to the Mercedes dealer that we usually go to for service, and they're currently investigating the issue but aren't quite sure what's causing it. I'll provide an update on what actually happens with that repair in a later video. With all of those repairs combined, the total cost of the second year of ownership of a certified pre-owned 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLS 450 was $4,485.71, which was several $100s more than the first year of ownership, which came to $3,885.48. So overall, the cost of owning this vehicle is coming in just over $4,000 a year, and that includes the certified pre-owned warranty, which covered several of the repairs for each year. Hopefully, we've taken care of most of the big ticket items that need to be repaired because our certified pre-owned warranty ends in June. So our next year's update is going to be really interesting to see how much it costs once the vehicle is out of the warranty period. So that's a look at what it's like to own a certified pre-owned 2021 Mercedes-Benz GLS 450 and all of the costs to keep it running. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button below and subscribe to see more content like this.